Good afternoon. Welcome to Board of Adjustment, December 7th. Looks like a quorum. Let's call the meeting to order. First item is minutes. Do we have a motion? Did anybody read them?
Motion to approve the minutes of the November 2nd, 2023 meeting.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. All right, okay. I abstained because I wasn't here, but the minutes accurately reflect that I wasn't here. So, okay. Cindy, continuance requests?
We have none.
Do we have any continuance requests from the public? We don't have a consent docket, so Cindy, you want to call the first one, please?
Okay. Item number 1, case number 15453 is a request of Johnson Associates on behalf of Med Park Real Estate for a variance to the requirements of limits of no access located at 6200 North Martin Luther King Avenue.
Good afternoon, Mark Zitzow with Johnson & Associates on behalf of the applicant. Before you is what we believe to be a fairly straightforward variance request, with the caveat that we're not seeking to vary anything in the zoning code. It's from a PUD that was written many years ago, and the tract was envisioned to be developed differently. And so when you see this, you're seeing a variance to the access regulations in the PUD. And I think what makes this unique is that we conform to all of the subdivision regulation and zoning code regulations in regard to driveway separation and spacing. We believe when the PUD was originally drafted, they were thinking that the bridge that had just been constructed along MLK had a new barrier wall put up, and at that time wasn't able to be moved. We've met with city staff and the Public Works Department. They're comfortable with our 160-foot spacing. What this development will require us to do is to reconstruct that portion of the barrier wall. And so what will end up happening is we'll be able to place a sidewalk off the back of the curb and create a much more safe pedestrian condition than what would occur today. I do have some renderings here. And while you're not here to talk about the use, we do think it's an exciting project in the Adventure District. It's a multi-sport complex, think chicken and pickle, but there's outdoor volleyball courts and indoor volleyball courts as well. So adding to kind of the amenities and activities in the Adventure District, we think is going to be a net positive for the area. In addition, there's an article that went out. It also looks like a hotel may be proposed on this site. So again, I think for the Adventure District, that'd be a net positive. But with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. We would ask for your support.
Any questions, comments from the board?
Seeing that Oklahoma City and Public Works was in support of it, I can be in support of it. We did a similar one. We built a bridge up on Western, and it has a rounded parapet, just like what you'll have to do. So it can be done.
Okay. I don't have anybody signed up on this one. Is there anybody who wants to speak on this application? All right, I think we're ready for a motion.
Motion to approve case number 15453 for the purposes that it meets the statutory requirements for the requested variance.
Second.
Motion and a second. Cast your votes. There you go. You're approved.
Thank you.
Item number 2, case number 15476, a request of Shannon M. Blevins Trust for a variance to the platted front yard setback in the R1 single-family residential district located at 2800 Somerset Place.
Good afternoon, Caitlin Turner, 522 Colcord Drive, here on behalf of the applicant. What you're seeing in front of you are some email correspondence. The relevant portion is the very top of the first page. We did receive a protest letter on this application, which is requesting a variance from the platted building line. The platted building line in this addition is 75 feet. Of course, it's zoned R1. R1 regs require 25 feet. We originally went in with a variance requesting a 40-foot front yard setback. We have since increased that to a 55-foot front yard setback, which is where that email comes into play. The neighbors that were in attendance at the neighborhood meeting, this was their representative, I believe is the president of the HOA, and this was his stipulation that they're okay if, I don't believe anyone is here from that meeting. But yeah, we have made that revision. We've gotten it back to staff. The reason for the request is A, due to the curvature, slight curvature of Somerset, which helps kind of mitigate the front yard setback. And then when you also look at some of the properties to the east and the west, our new request is now greater than the property to the west and then in line with properties to the east. Well, one over from the abutting property. But not a significant deviation from the other homes that are developed on this street. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Kaylin, so was this person representing the 15 people that,
There were about
Tested?
10 people that showed up at the neighborhood meeting, and he has been the contact and stipulated that he was the acting representative. And again, I believe he is the president of that homeowners association, but all of them agreed that he was my point of contact for correspondence on this matter. I think there was also some confusion because, of course, the front yard setback is measured from the property line, not the right-of-way. So there's extra room between the property line and that right-of-way that create extra space. So that was of comfort to the neighbors that attended as
yeah,
well.
I went by there this morning, it looked like there's probably an additional 10 feet
Yeah,
from back of the street to the property line and then 55 more feet.
and this lot is just kind of unique. It's very long and narrow, so they've revised their design significantly over the course of, meetings with neighbors and other correspondence to bring that back to, again, other homes along Somerset. Again, the reason for that as well is there's not as much space between the rear yard setback and the rear yard property line, and then there are condominiums that are right up against their property line, so just kind of allowing them a little flexibility and privacy.
Okay, anything else from the board? And I don't have anybody signed up to speak. Does anybody want to address this application? Okay, I think we're ready for a motion.
Motion to approve case number 15476 for the purposes that it meets the statutory requirements for the requested variance.
Second.
Got a motion and a second, so cast your votes.
Thank you.
Approved.
Item number 3, case number 15490, request of Starter Investments LLC for a variance to limitations on dumpsters all districts in the R4 General Residential District and the AE2 Airport Environment Zone located at 3317 Southwest 44th Street.
Give us your name and address and a little bit about your application, please.
Sure. My name is Alan Larson. I represent Starter Investments, which is my company. The address is 3317 Southwest 44th Street in Oklahoma City. Recently, a few months ago, our trash provider reached out to us and said that they needed to move the trash can because it no longer was safe for the public or their drivers to service the can there. So we moved the can slightly over to the other side of the parking lot, and immediately after that we got hit with a code violation. And we started looking into this to see where we could potentially put the dumpster and found out there's nowhere on the property, nowhere else we could put the dumpster that meets current code requirements. And so I put in an application for a variance to keep the dumpster where it is on the left side of the property now, where the trash provider is saying they can service the dumpster, without having some of the requirements on there, because if we add some of the requirements that are on there, such as siding, it starts to take away from the parking that we have there, and also requires us to then move into the parking lot, which requires us to update the parking lot, which we can't meet the code requirements for the parking lot, so that requires an additional variance. And so the idea is to try and cause as little hardship as possible by keeping the dumpster there. I'm open for any questions.
Anything from the board?
Where was the dumpster located originally?
So the dumpster was located, yeah, right there on the left-hand side.
And now, I went by there this morning. Is there no possible way you could just put the dumpster towards the back, take out one of those parking stalls, and just have them?
Yeah, thank you for that question. We did explore that as a possibility to put it back there, but if you notice, these are very narrow areas. The dumpsters, for one, can't get back there. Two, if we go to put it back there, the only way we could get it back there is if we shrink the dumpster size, and we'd have to go to a smaller enclosure. Even with the smaller enclosure, that would require dumpsters that are now on rollers, and we would have to have gates, but the gates, there's so little space back there that the gates would open up and they would swing and hit the support for the stairs on either side.
How many,
It also does
how many
not meet
units
the-
are there in this?
There's 16 units here. It also doesn't meet the 25-foot requirement from any edge.
I just think that to put the can, or the dumpster actually up in the easement in front of the building without screening, I can't get behind that.
I agree. I don't think it's a great idea. I've looked at this from every angle, trying to figure out, what's the best way to do this. And so if we have to, if we leave the dumpster in the front, I can't even put it in that spot because there's a slope that goes downwards. And so if we have to break in the parking lot, the only thing we could potentially do is move it over to the middle, back to the middle where they're saying they're having a hard time servicing it now. We could potentially create go with smaller dumpsters there, be on rollers, put in a gate, and they'll roll it out. The problem is we lose 2 parking spaces where we don't already have enough parking spaces. I get complaints every single month about the parking spaces. Then we have to, in order to try and meet the code requirements for the parking lot, we'd have to update the electrical because it's an old building. It still has an old electrical. It's concrete all the way to the back. The house accounts on the middle building. So we would trench all the way to the front to add the lighting requirements. Then we'd have to bring it up to ADA compliant, and then we still couldn't meet the parking lot requirement because we don't have enough spaces. So then I'd be seeing you guys again for another variance for the parking lot. And I think that my biggest concern is if we go that route, there's just been a lot of hardships this year. It's been very financially taxing. We had a fire at one of our other properties, and that's weighing on us. Property taxes are increasing, and I don't have it in the budget to spend the 20 to 25 grand it's going to take to get this up to that speed, only to see you guys again for another variance because it doesn't meet code requirements.
Any other questions, comments from the board?
And I'm actually open to some suggestions as well. I've talked to the permits department, asking them, hey, do you have any recommendations? I've asked everybody along the way, hey, do you have any recommendations on what we should do here? And the answer has just been, you know, I see you have a financial, or a hardship here. I see something has to change, but there was no recommendations on what to do.
I do have a quick question real quickly.
Sure.
By looking at this picture, is there any way that the dumpster can be moved further to the right side of where it's currently located and they possibly come around in the parking lot and unload it from there?
Can you give me some more specifics on what you mean?
So, can we pull this one up? Same one?
Why can't you screen?
Sarah, can you do the the one with the picture of the trash can?
We did put in a permit for this as well, which got denied, and I don't think that was with the variance, but I'm happy to provide a copy of that,
That one.
if that's
On this
helpful.
picture that's currently showing, is there any way that it can be moved to the right side? And then the truck pull in and empty it from the parking lot?
So just to clarify, you're talking about, we'd move it over to the left side, other side of the concrete?
Yes, sir.
So that's actually what I'm putting in the variance for. So when we got when they reached out to us, we said, okay, well let's put it on the other side. So what they're doing now is they come in through one side of the parking lot, they swing around, and you can see right there that's where they've put it, and they're able to come in with the forks and lift it directly from there to do that.
Okay.
So kind of what I was hoping maybe my best middle ground is I would assume you guys would want me to, you know, do the best I can, and the best I can, I think in that scenario would be to pour a concrete pad, a
Yeah,
10
I
by 10
think that's
concrete
your
pad.
only option with that space there.
Correct, yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, anything else? I don't have anybody signed up on this one. Does anybody want to address the board on this application? Okay, I think we're ready for a motion
I got a
then.
quick question
Oh,
though. As far as, so putting dumpsters towards the back of the property, even if they are smaller and on rollers, what's the feedback on that?
Well, the concern is, I think that if we have to build an enclosure back there, one, it's very narrow back there, so you wouldn't be able to really fit very well in between, you know, getting around it. But two, you've got to have these gates on the front of the enclosure that's required as part of the code requirements, big metal gates, and so when they swing open, they would hit the stairs that are on the back side, the support, and could take out those stairs.
And
So
it's
that's
not
an
enough
issue.
space for a big truck to maneuver back there regardless.
Correct, yes. I've met with the trash provider probably about 6 times now, trying to identify. We've done a bunch of site visits, trying to decide, is there anywhere else we can put this? And I've got a letter from them as well, and what I provided with the variance, saying that this is the only spot that they thought that they could really service this can.
With a truck, right?
Correct, yes.
But as far as the back, I'm trying to understand if the fear is that when you open the gate, it's going to hit the stairs. You can't put some kind of stop or something so that it does not happen?
Well, that's a concern too. Also, if we're trying to meet the 25-foot setback, we're putting it all the way up kind of in the front here in the middle, even if we went without gates. I mean, it's so windy that having dumpsters on rollers, I mean, you've got to have gates so that they don't come flying out and start hitting cars and stuff. So,
But you don't have any screening in your proposal?
correct, yeah.
So there's no screening, and it's in the front of the building, and yet you're not willing to put it towards the back of the building and roll them? Again, I just won't be able to support.
You know, I'm open to suggestions. It just seems like if we put it back there, the only way we could really make that work is without in order to open up these gates, we'd have to not have the gates really, and be on rollers, and it just doesn't seem safe. I'm not exactly sure what to do here, but I know we have to have a dumpster, and so I'm trying to do the best I can. I wish I had the money to hire representation as well to help with this. It's just, I don't, and so I've spent a lot of time meeting with everybody and talking to the permits department and the trash providers, everybody that's been able to help, and they've all been super helpful, getting to this point. I'm not sure what to do. So that was the best, of all the things that we could potentially do, that seemed like the best option that was going to provide the least amount of financial hardship and probably the quickest solution. This can has been sitting up in this front section since the property was built. And so,
Do you know the reasons why the city of Oklahoma City won't service the trash for the apartment complex?
I do. It's because it's a commercial property. The city requires on these commercial properties that we get, it's in the code requirements that we have to get somebody else to do that, so.
And we can't surround the dumpster in the front because it's within an easement?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that question?
What's the reason that we can't surround it? We can't cover up the trash can in the front part?
So in this front area here, you can kind of see that if we put in the, right here, we've got a slope that comes down. So as you come in, if we were to put that there, the slope is a concern, but also the gates, because they would, how wide the gates are, they would swing open and they would eliminate a parking space, which is just another concern. If we did go that route, we would also have to break into the parking lot, which again requires bringing the parking lot up to code, the electrical updates, trenching through the concrete, and then meeting for another variance because we can't meet the parking lot requirements for the amount of parking spaces. We currently have 20 parking spaces there, and the code requirement is 26 for the current code.
Is this all on 1 meter?
They're separately metered for electrical, and then water, sewer, trash is all together.
So there's just one water meter there.
Correct. And we wouldn't, I don't think we'd have these kind of restrictions if it was just commercial. You can see there's commercial over here, there's commercial 3 or 4 buildings over this way, there's commercial across the street. And so with those were, if it were, all just commercial, we just kind of happen to land where there's some houses around there, which, it's just is what it is, but that's kind of where I've landed.
Anything else from the board? And I don't have anybody signed up to speak on this one. Does anybody want to address this application? Okay, I think we're ready for a motion.
I'm not sure if I can put forth a motion, just because I feel like there are certain options, like putting trash cans in the back, as well as trying to figure out if we can cover. I realize that it's going to cause an additional burden, but I don't think that I can put forth a motion to approve. Unless one of the other board members here wants to do that.
And rather than us put forward a motion to not allow this to happen today, defer it, maybe come up with a different solution? Because if we say no, then you have to start the application again.
Are there any suggestions on what we should do? I'm open. We've looked at all the solutions as far as I can tell, and I don't know that there's any better solution.
I would again suggest to look for a different trash service with smaller cans that you could put towards the back of the building and maybe roll forward and in order to keep the parking spots. I agree. to not have it screened, to have it in the right of way, I can't support it.
If it's any substance, I did call other trash providers to see if they would service that, and kind of gave them a rundown of what was happening, and they said, no, we need to put, we would do the same thing. We'd put it on this side, or we'd put it on this side. We did look at potentially moving it to the other side. It's the same scenario, but there's more of a slope, and so they were not able to do that. This was the spot they said that they could service it at.
Did you get any indication from the city as far as the maximum amount of blue bins that you could get for the property?
The maximum amount of blue bins?
The-
I did not. Are you thinking,
Well, 'cause I don't, and I could be wrong, so staff would have to correct me, but I don't think that simply being commercial prohibits you from having the blue bins. There's plenty of commercial properties that have the standard blue bins, but I believe it goes off of the number of meters that you have. And so unfortunately, you only have 1 meter, so you'd be limited to the maximum amount of bins that you could have at a residential location. But as in an indirect way, that may be a solution if they give you the maximum amount of bins that you can have given a meter. Maybe you split it, maybe you have a separate meter so that you could be eligible to use the blue bins?
just to kind of go back on your question a little bit, that was one of the things we did look into, and in the code requirements, when we looked it up, it said it did require us for this property to have a commercial service provider, and that was one of the things that our trash provider also brought up. And so I don't know that that's going to be an option. I'm not sure where, or why some of these other companies were allowed to do that. That's just, when we looked into it, that was our conclusion, is that
Is this
this
in a
property.
PUD? No, so it's straight commercial? R4?
This site is zoned R4. It's adjacent to R2 and R1, which creates the 25-foot setback for dumpsters. I just wanted to remind the board that you can condition a variance, so you could reduce the setback not to 0. You could set it. I don't know if screening is possible with landscaping, or if you'd be blocking your
Just to clarify,
triangle.
when you say landscaping, are you talking maybe doing a fence that
In-
kind of further comes out? and
In lieu, the board is concerned about the lack of screening of the dumpster.
Mhm.
I didn't know if landscaping on either the west side, you did have opposition from that neighbor, I think, or along the front, if it doesn't impede the view from the driveway, is a possibility. I'm just reminding the board that they can condition a variance.
Yeah, thank you for that. If that was any substance of it, if you wanted us to kind of put up a fence that kind of goes along the property and the grass, there might be enough space to do that. And then that wouldn't require, we wouldn't have to have the gate that would take away the parking space and have us go into parking lot requirements. It would kind of look a little funny, but it would screen if we put up a wood fence or something. And we'd definitely be open to that, for sure.
With that being said, I think deferring this and you coming back with more detail would help me.
So a second proposal for something like that, or?
I'd like to see it and know what you can and cannot do.
Okay.
You might include a little bit of landscaping or the stockade fence like you suggested.
Sure, yeah.
And I would just add that just in the event that didn't work, one of the things that you may also have, if you're gonna put some additional documentation together, is if we can get some information on what those alternative dumpsters, what the specs are on those in terms of like the size and dimensions of the ones that we're saying can't work at the back, that would be helpful as well.
Would you like to know the size of the dumpsters or the requirement size for the enclosures?
Well, correct me, is the city's requiring you to screen if you put it in the back, but you're not being told you have to screen if you put it in the front?
No, the requirement's the same. You would still have to screen anywhere on the property.
You need a variance for both,
So,
either location.
We need a variance to be able to,
It's just, for me, and I think Marcus also is what we're saying, is if they're towards the back of the building, they're already kind of screened by the buildings. And then a smaller dumpster back there, maybe even two on either alley, and then you could solve your problem and we could get behind a variance.
okay. Are there any other questions for me then?
When's our next meeting?
January the 4th.
Can you wait till January 4?
I'm sorry?
Next meeting's January 4.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Still, nobody signed up to speak on this one. Think-
Motion then?
On this one? Yeah, go ahead. No, come on up so that, make a record and
Just to clarify your question, sir,
give us your name and address.
Dakota Worrell, 1402 Kenilworth Road.
Okay.
Thanks. Just to clarify your question, the difference between why screening in the back is different than screening in the front is we can have an ample-sized dumpster in the front that's not going to blow away. It's not on wheels. Whereas if we put smaller dumpsters, which we would have to have several on the back of the property, not only are they going to be small enough that they have to be on wheels, but they're going to have to drag the dumpster, each of those dumpsters, 100 feet into the parking lot along that channel to service it. So I hear you guys saying you want us to come back with other proposals, but we've done the homework. We've called 3 trash providers. The city will not service it. It's an absolute no. They won't do it. We've called 3 trash providers. We're here because we don't have a way to do it. So if you want us to come back on January 4th, great, but it's kind of going to be the same thing. It might be more prudent to say, hey, we want it screened from that house, plant some trees, build a fence, do something, but the problems that we're telling you we have here today are still going to exist. The trash company doesn't want to do it, and neither does Oklahoma City. So they're telling us, fix it, but we don't know how we want you to fix it, and we're going to fine you every day until you do, and we're not going to be of any help along the way. The property has existed like this for 60, 70 years now, and it's never been a problem. And now the city is essentially signing us up for a $40,000 bill with no input, help, or lenience towards us to solve the problem. And we're not coming here unprepared. We have done the homework. We've talked to every department willing to talk to us. It's all your problem, fix it, and we're going to shoot down any solution you have. So we're coming here with something simple. The residents need trash. How do we give it to them without tearing the building down? Thank you.
So I'm on the same end as you guys are, honestly, and I did hear what Sarah mentioned, a possible solution that we can decide today. So I would like for Sarah to again repeat what you told us could be a possible solution.
Well, I'm unsure to what solution to we
Well-
really have tried to offer. Sarah Welch, Planning Department.
Yes.
We really understand your issue, and and he's right. It's hard to get a solution and meet code. That is why you're here. I was just reminding the board that normally our 25-foot setback. I guess what I was trying to say is, if they were inclined to approve it, one condition may be that you specify a different setback.
Yes.
That would be less than 25, but it's hard without conducting a site visit or knowing exactly how you're set up, whether you could screen with landscaping instead of fencing. I mean, I don't know that. I was just asking if that was a potential solution, because you have the dumpster location. Your buildings are set back farther than the homes, which puts your dumpster location next to their homes.
Yeah.
And that's the problem that we're trying to solve.
Yeah, and all these properties were built very close to each other. I mean, our building, from our building through the fence to the other building's only like 6 feet.
So you do have space where you can move it back that far, and it'll be okay?
Can you clarify?
Can you move your dumpster where you'll have enough space to meet the requirement? If we say, yeah, we can approve this, if you move this and put some type of landscaping or something around it?
Yeah, that's the hard thing, is we don't have the space for that.
Oh, you do
So there's
not?
only, on the map we have, if you could
There's
pull that-
probably about 10 foot of grass, and then it's concrete paving, and for a 25-foot setback, they'd be into the concrete paving to where the dumpster would be, and that's where the dumpster should be.
Okay.
It's a little bit larger than
More
that. I
towards-
think it's like 15 or 20 feet from the property line. 24 feet, it looks like. And so it seemed that the simplest solution was to pour that pad there, and then it doesn't quite meet that, but it's like, it's got, 15-ish feet or 14 feet from the property line.
16 shy.
And then right in front of this property, of course, is a busy street. And so,
I agree with the information that the other gentleman brought up. It seems like you guys don't feel like, or you feel like you've exhausted all of the other alternatives that you have. But from our position, we have to take into consideration the neighbors here. And I would encourage you guys to do the same. If I'm sitting there in this property just west of you guys, I personally, I'm not making this their argument, but I personally don't know that there's any configuration in that location that makes me happy as the person owning the home right there. So the reason that I brought up, the comments that this other gentleman made is because if you feel like we're delaying you in something that, there's only one inevitable conclusion on, I personally think that is finding a solution in the rear of the property. And so if it makes sense to you guys, if it's something that you feel is beneficial, I would support some type of conditional approval based off of what you guys have there, so that way you don't have to come back up here. But if that's not an option, then I think that we are kind of limited to just coming back and seeing if there's anything else, any other solutions that come up.
what kind of conditional approval would you suggest?
Well, and I can only speak for me, but if I would be comfortable giving a conditional approval in the event that you could find some type of trash enclosure that could fit behind or on the north end of the property in between those buildings, regardless of whether it was on wheels and something had to be erected to keep it from moving, whether you could have some type of custom enclosure. I'm not really sticky on all of that stuff. It's just the location. Getting them back there, I would support. You still have the challenge of figuring it out and working it with the trash provider, the trash service provider, and possibly even contractors to come and build what needed to be built there. But it would get you out of having to come back here. It would get you out of kicking the can down the road a month.
I'm not really concerned about coming back here. I've asked several times, and like I said, we had 6 site visits. That's just site visits. I've had a lot of conversations with them over the phone and through email, and the answer was they won't service it. And so,
So if it's located in the back, they will not service it at all? Is that what you're saying? So that's not an option at all?
it's not an option.
Are you saying for any size? I understand for the existing size, but you're saying that they don't have a product at all that they would be willing to service on the north end of the property?
I think maybe there's a potential to do like two-yard dumpsters. We could call the city of Oklahoma and see if they have maybe 2-yard dumpsters that they could do, and we could just put a bunch of 2-yard dumpsters here. I mean, we'd have to have like 16 of them all over the property.
Given the dilemma that you've got with the logistics, the size, I feel your pain. I could probably get on board with this if there was some kind of landscaping or 6-foot fence site proofing.
Okay?
with the rest of you, I don't like it, but
Is that something that could be decided today, or would we have to come back with a proposal and show you kind of where we'd put that fence? Because I would think it would just come all the way along the side of the front of the neighbor's property, so they're not looking at it, and we would come over to the end of the grass. The property is a little bit unique in that the concrete, it's not exactly square. It comes over like this, then up like this, but we could make a fence.
yeah, if you could at least screen somehow 3 sides of that dumpster.
Where it currently is?
Of course, that would be pending
I
the
don't think
trash
you
service
would even do
provider.
it where it's currently standing with, I mean, maybe get a revocable permit, but you still need a 25-foot setback.
Yes, we would still need a variance for that. We would need a variance for the,
So he's gonna
basically
come
for the
back and
fence still,
buy
because
one.
it doesn't quite meet the requirement. And then the setback, of course. But it would be, we could potentially do screening as long as the trash provider says it's not gonna mess with their forks.
That's not going to create a safety problem for the cars coming in and out once you put a barrier around there, or will it?
I don't think so, no. There's 2 inlets coming in and out, and we would be going just along the grass, and it would be coming along the front of the sidewalk. There's a sidewalk that goes straight there. And in fact, it might even be a little bit more aesthetically pleasing for everything. And who doesn't like a fence?
What size is the current unit? Is that a 6-yard or 8-yard?
I'm sorry, or did you ask what size the dumpster is?
Yes.
It's an 8-yard.
And do you know what the dimensions currently are between your middle structure and the 2 side structures?
It is on the,
I saw that grid, but it's not clear what the, I can't
if
make
you could
out
pull
what
it up, we'll see. I think it's 15 feet in between them. And then you've got kind of these overhangs a little bit from the building, but also you'll see around the structure, there's a sidewalk that goes around the entire middle structure. And we've got our railings that come out on the other side, on the left-hand
Do
building.
you know what that dimension is between where the sidewalks are? You talking about the sidewalk in front of the west building and the sidewalk on the side of the middle building?
I think the sidewalks are 3 feet and 2 inches. You might have set off the 15 feet, I think. You've got 12-ish feet. Their concern wasn't necessarily the sidewalk. It seemed like they were more concerned about the overhangs and the buildings and because there's a second story, railing, a walkway. They were concerned about hitting the second story railing and walkway. They're concerned about hitting the overhang of the building when they come to put the can over because it comes up so tall. You know, they said it was so skinny, they just wouldn't do that. That wasn't even an option.
As far as parking spaces, I mean, if you put it in the corner, right where you're trying to propose, but up on that parking spot, would you lose 1 or 2 parking spots as a result of that?
I believe we'd lose 1 parking space. And it would also swing out kind of where the cars are coming in and out on the other side.
So, this is a very hard one, but if we can possibly see like a site plan or something to see how it's really gonna look.
Sure.
Do the
Yeah, we could
fence
put a
and
rendering
stuff,
together
yeah.
for a,
Because I know you can visually see what it looked like, but I cannot. So therefore, I would like to see how all of that's gonna come together.
yeah, I'd be happy to put that together if that's something you guys would like to see.
Yeah, because I really don't think having 16 different dumpsters around your place is going to take care of your problem at all.
I'm concerned that just trash is going to fly everywhere. And also, we'd have to try and get the city on board with that, but I don't know where we would put them all. That's also the concern. Where can we put them all that they can service 16 of them? Yeah, but where would you even put them all?
But, excuse me, come on up and use the microphone so we can get it recorded, please.
Sorry, I feel like I'm being a nuisance, but as he said, money's gotten really tight this year. It's been a bad year for real estate. We would put it in the back, like we would. We're not trying to be difficult. There's just not a feasible way to do it. And so one thing we looked at is the code says if they're 2 cubic yard dumpsters, we don't have to comply with any screening requirements. We don't have to put it in the back of the building. So we could go get 4 2 cubic yard dumpsters and put it there and, you know, sign up for a lottery ticket to a lawsuit with the city. But it's going to look ugly. It's going to be dangerous. They're going to be rolling around. We don't want to do that. We would invite any of you out to the site to see the fact that we got a sidewalk over here, an overhang over here. It's actually more like 12 feet that we've got, 9 or 10 feet that we've got going through there. We don't want to be here over a dumpster. Like, we're not here in front of this council because we care that much about a dumpster. We're here because it's going to cost $40,000 to do it any other way. And it doesn't make sense. If you guys are okay with us putting it up there, we'll plant trees, we'll screen it any which way you want. But really, this is the proposal. This is what we've got. So if you guys want to see what the fence looks like, what the screening looks like, or if you guys want to come do a site visit and see exactly why it's not feasible to put it back there, we would welcome all of those things, but there just aren't other solutions here. I just can't rephrase that. We spent 40 hours of work just working on dumpsters, meeting with every department in the city, and they can't come up with a solution. It's not just our brain that you're sending back to the table. We've talked to 40 brains in the same city that's fining us, and they don't have the solutions. We called GFL, we called Waste Connections, we called Republic Services. They don't have the solutions. We don't want the dumpster up there in the front either. It doesn't look great on our property. We're not happy. We're not trying to slide one by you. It's a simple problem. The tenants need parking, the tenants need trash. There's no good way to do it. I'm sorry for the neighbor. We'll make it as painless as possible. We'll make it pretty, but, you know, maybe we'll go to Waste Connection and ask them if they'll be okay letting us paint a mural on the can. I don't know, but there's no other place to put this dumpster.
And that's another option too. So again, I'm gonna repeat what I asked. If you could possibly, and I don't know how everybody else feel about this, but if you can possibly give us a site plan so we can take a look at it. And again, I like that recommendation too. Maybe you can ask those people if you can paint it or do something different with it or something. But it's apparent that you've done a lot of research on this and you know for a fact that you cannot get around it, over it, or above it. So therefore, I would like to see a site plan.
Okay?
But he has said multiple times he can get around it and above it. It just costs money to do so.
Well, and I hear that, not just money, but it also costs some possibilities that he may try those things and they may not work. So that's lost money. And I'm not trying to argue one point or the other, but I think this is an option that we can explore and have him to come back and show that to us before we say yes, no, maybe so. Just an option. And that's how I would vote on this one.
And I would too, and I suggested it before, deferring this till January 4th.
You
Is it
sure
4th?
did, so thank you. So let's
Yes,
stop wasting
thank you
time.
for your suggestions. I mean, we're really just trying to find a good solution, and it's just been a really hard thing to figure out. If there was anywhere that just met all the requirements, I mean, we just put it there. It's like you said, I don't want to be here over a dumpster. You know, it's costing me money and time just because my tenants need a dumpster, and I just trying to figure that out.
Yeah, and I'm sympathetic to it. I don't want you to think that we don't care. Trust me, I know that you have better things to do than being here. Like I said before, my biggest thing is just we've got to consider, you know, the other property owners. If you were here and if there was a commercial building next door, if it was a raw land next door, this would be really easy for me. But I can't in good conscience disregard that neighboring property. So I'm on board with continuing it. Not to complicate it any further, but for me, it would still help. I'd still like to see the information, the specs on that rear building and what units are available. I'd also, I will tell you, I think it would go a long way. I know you guys said you have spoken with several people, various departments and staff. It'd go a long way if you had a discussion with that neighbor and got them on board with the solution. I think that would be huge if you came back here in January and you said, here's a solution that we actually got the neighbors to sign off on as well.
Okay.
I also point out that the statutory standards that we're supposed to follow in order to grant a variance, item D says the variance, if granted, would be the minimum necessary to alleviate the unnecessary hardship. And so the fact that we are still talking about the possibility of using those rear dumpsters, to me, I've not met that item, that part of the statutory guideline. So I think
Could you explain that again, please? I'm having a hard time hearing you.
So I've got for our paperwork, it says in order to grant a variance, it's got to meet these 4 statutory requirements. And item D says the variance, if granted, would be the minimum necessary to alleviate the unnecessary hardship. So the fact that we can still possibly could have dumpsters in the back part of the property tells me that we've not quite met that requirement. So until it's shown that that's an absolute no, then I can't fully get in support of what we currently have. I like the idea of putting a fence around it, if you can get on board and covering it up, because that's an eyesore when you're looking at it from the road. And so I think there's some things to kind of flesh out. I think that we'll hopefully come with a solution for you guys. And I'm sorry it's going to take another month or 2 to get there, but we'll get there, I think.
Thank you.
Ready for a motion?
Sure. Motion to defer case number 15490 to the January 4th, 2024 Board of Adjustment meeting.
I second.
We've got a motion and a second to continue. Sorry. Okay, we'll see you in January. Thank you.
Thank you.
And sir, please try to get with that neighbor who complained, because I think what my colleague recommended will be a big win for you if you can get him on board, or her.
Does it matter that they're, okay, never mind. Well, we'll do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 4, case number 15493, a request of ADG for a variance to parking garage screening requirements located at 2 Northeast 2nd Street.
Tim Zajac with ADG Blatt. I'm here in behalf of the Park First Parking. A little background on the project, that this is a project that was approved back in 2020. Originally, it was done through our office, but also through a different contracting company, and there was a different design. When this project came back to life here earlier this year, we looked at redesigning the original design. We weren't quite happy with how it was originally. We looked at trying to add parking garage that was, if we all know Bricktown, and some of the parking garages that are there, they have their history. We were trying to stay away from that for sure, and look at putting a parking garage that was actually designed to be part of the community as opposed to just being functional in a parking garage. So the concept of the design is to make the garage look like one of the original Bricktown warehouses. If you look at the screened portions, which is the south and east elevations, those elevations are made to look like the large window structures that we have in the warehouses. But we also knew that this was a really big structure in itself, and we wanted to make it as light as possible. And so on the north and the west sides is where we are showing, as you have in a lot of the warehouses in the district, of the exposed concrete structure. And so that's what we're trying to do there. And we're here to ask for a variance on the issue of screening. We looked at this as a unique piece of property in the fact that it does not necessarily sit directly on the major streets. And so we looked at trying to make this structure as light as possible with removing the screening, which would make that typically how it's done. If we look at the parking garages, you have that horizontal element that we've got on the front in a limited capacity. You do that on all the floors, it weighs the building down and becomes an issue. So that is why we had looked at redesigning it and trying to make this as light as possible on these two sides.
Questions, comments from the board?
Is there anybody here to speak on this one?
Yes.
I think so.
Yeah, there's one protest letter, and Elizabeth.
Good afternoon. I thought Tim might go into this, but I'm happy to advise the board that.
Give us your name and address.
Oh, I'm sorry, Elizabeth George.
Thank you.
And I'm here on behalf of the Clark Building LLC, and they are located at 16 Northeast 2nd Street. Yes, and these are some of the photos of the building. You're fine. So if you look at the subject property, kind of an inch in, you see kind of the gold top building with the two squares on it. Right there, yes. That is the building that is owned by my clients. The photos that you have provided in the package that we gave you are of the back side of that building. In the very first photo, the color ones, yes. Just kind of trying to give some perspective. Yes, so where you see the parking garage there that the mouse is kind of on right now, that is where, I'm sorry, the parking lot behind the building, where the black car is, the concrete parking lot. That's where the parking garage is gonna be immediately in relationship to the Clark building owned by my client. As you can see in the more close-up picture there at the bottom, the top 3 stories, the roof, and then the top 2 stories are living space. Specifically, you can obviously see on the top that that's all very viewable. Specifically, you can see in some of these photos that back window, if you go 2 down to where the bathroom photos are at, that back window are those back windows right there that are circled in red. So we obviously have some privacy concerns with there not being screening on that side of the parking garage. I have been working with Mr. Zajac since submitting our objection to try to come up with a practical solution, but also meet the aesthetic, because the parking garage is going in, right? It's just the variance issue. So we're beyond that point. But we would like to work together to try to make it as beautiful as possible and to not obstruct the view, but to also provide some privacy. So what's been discussed is the possibility of including screening, moving it back a little bit, moving the building back a little bit, which sounds like is a possibility because it's like a stone's throw where it's currently set. But with respect to the variance, we have agreed upon, I believe, and I'll let Mr. Zajac speak on behalf of his client, to put screening in on the bays that are immediately adjacent to the building, while us being agreeable to the variance with respect to the bays that are not
immediately adjacent to the building, because the parking garage is very large. This is kind of a suggestion of what we've talked through. We're not entirely sure at this point, because we did this so quickly, which of the bays are going to be immediately adjacent. This is just a rendering to kind of show you all what it might end up looking like with the variance granted with respect to the non-adjacent lots. But as you'll see, and I'll let the professionals talk about this, having some of them have screening for aesthetic value and beautification, so that it's not just this ugly 2 blocks are screened and nothing else. But we are agreeable, and I guess maybe we could do something conditioned like was discussed on the other, to allowing this variance subject to the screening being required on the bays immediately adjacent to the residence, which I didn't get this far. The top 3 floors can be private residence, it can be rented out. The bottom floor is a dentist office that has patients, and the patients are immediately, like, there's windows that face out to that, so obviously we've got privacy concerns about folks in there getting treatment. So this proposed plan addresses our primary concerns that I think from a legal perspective are subject to this variance hearing. And so with that, I'd let Mr. Zajac speak more about what the developer is willing to do to accommodate our privacy concerns. Thank you.
Yes, so when we received the letter of objection, we didn't want to just ignore that privacy issue. And so that was where the talks started with the owners and Ms. George, in the fact that, okay, how can we do this and work through it? Because in all honesty, whether the variance is denied or approved, it really doesn't solve the issue of the privacy. And so that was where we reached out and said, okay, maybe we could talk and see how this goes. So the solution that we've started to come up with that you're seeing here is, on the ground floor is where that CMU detail was already planned, and that was part of the design that was approved by Bricktown Design Review. And what we'd like to do is, again, we haven't had the time to go through and realize which one of these bays are critical bays in looking back toward the owner's property. But what we'd like to do is find which one of those bays are. And in my mind, there's probably 5, 6, 7, maybe, that need this type of screening. And what it would be is the CMU. So we'd get the densest type of screen for this solution without it being a block wall. Because in our opinion also, it does no good to have a block wall that close to one of your windows. So we're trying to get to a compromise there, and the screen seems to be the best solution. What we'd like to do on top of that is, then once we know where these bays need to be, to do our best to be a good neighbor as far as the privacy issue is concerned, then we would add a number of bays that would also be done, so that then what we've got is more of a random, and think of the north elevation in that particular sense as just its own mural, and it becomes its own art form on the north side. And so when you see it from the street, or you're seeing it as you're walking through, anything like that, you're seeing that in a different perspective, as opposed to just, here are 6 or 8 bays that need to be screened for being a good neighbor on the privacy issue, but it has no rhyme or reason. So although this isn't the final solution, this was a way of us trying to work through and what that could be. And in our minds also, just personally, this is just one person's vote, I think it could be kind of a cool look as we're seeing it from 2nd Street. And if you guys did have a true issue, although we personally believe that the screening issue that is in the ordinance doesn't necessarily apply here, but that's up for debate. What we're trying to do is meet with our neighbors and be a good neighbor there, But then also, if you were directly opposed to no screening whatsoever, then this is a nice solution also that seems to meet in the middle ground.
So I guess what I would ask, based on the conversations we've had over the last several days, is we would be fine with the variance being granted, subject to the building being moved, and there's a certain number of feet. There's lots of easements around here that limit where this building can be located, because we first discussed just moving it completely to the east, but there's easements in the way. The developer is willing and able to move it, I think it's 7 or 8 feet, from its current location, as well as conditioned upon the screening in the places most immediately adjacent to the building located at 16 Northeast 2nd Street. With those conditions, we would be fine with the variance being granted.
Yes, I didn't go into the site at all, but if you looked at your site plan, this particular piece of property is bound on all sides by easements. And their one and most difficult easement is the one that cuts completely through the site, and it is the reason that our parking garage has the truncated side. So we can't move it much. We would have loved to be able to. We did find, I worked with my civil engineer in the last couple of days, that we could move it some, and we'd be willing to do that.
If they move the building, do they have to go back to Bricktown Design?
Sarah Welch, Planning Department. I was just confirming that. So
Thank you.
the screening can be changed administratively. That's
Okay.
the movement of the building. In which direction? I'm sorry. That part I didn't.
Move it south.
Okay. I don't know if that could be done administratively or if it would have to go back. I'd have to confirm with the urban design staff.
I've talked to Michael and reached out to him just to let him know what was going on. That was, once we kind of had a consensus between everybody, I reached out to him just to let him know. We're ready for that if we need to. Michael did state that he thought that it could be done administratively. However we need to go through that process, we're ready to do. We're not, I don't want to feel cocky here, but I feel confident that we're okay with them. They loved our design originally, and so I think some tweaks here and there, and that would be one of the things that we'd also want to work through with them if we really needed to, because we still have to go through that process with the owner of which one of these, which particular bays would have the screening in particular, so that we could come back with a final design.
If we approve a variance with screening required, let's see, it'd be the north side of the parking garage, directly across from your client's property. Is that too vague to put in a motion? I don't want them coming back twice and having to go everywhere else. I don't want to create more problems for you.
Yeah, and that was why we started working through with them on the solution we did to deny our variance on the north side or on both sides, whichever it may be. It won't cure the solution of the privacy issue. So that's why we were looking into, is there an alternate solution that gets us there for the owner? We didn't want to just walk into this and just ignore their letter and just say, it's a variance issue of screening the cars. Is it a yes or a no? We didn't want to we didn't want to be like that. That's not part of this. Our whole goal with this garage since day one when it came back and our firm had the ability to be part of the design process. We were part of the project back in 20, but we weren't part of the design process. That was done through the contractor. So since day one, when this came back and our firms had the ability to be part of the design process, we wanted this parking garage to be, there's a low bar, in my own opinion, to the parking garages that are in Bricktown currently. But we wanted it to be part of the Bricktown fabric. It's in a unique place. It's seen a lot of different ways. And so that was part of the reasons that we've had the design. And so we looked at it as opposed to just walking back in here once there was the objection of just saying, well, that's really not what we're talking about here of screening cars and privacy. We wanted to be able to take that next step and look at hopefully meeting their needs, but also being able to accentuate the design.
Questions, comments from the board?
What I might suggest if you're wanting to be specific, because what we didn't want to do is say bays number 6 and 7 and then find out that it really needed to be 5 and 6. This is what we talked about this morning. What I would suggest, and you can tell me if you think this is specific enough, is that if the board is so inclined, to move to approve the variance subject to screening being required on the bays immediately adjacent to the building located at 16 Northeast 2nd Street, as well as the building being moved the maximum number of feet permitted with the easements into account. That would be my suggestion, to be as specific but still give us room to move those bays if we need to.
Now are there any questions, comments from the board?
Sarah, are you going to say something?
No, I was just going to say, subject to a potential revision from the Bricktown Urban Design Committee or Urban Design staff. I mean, they sent this to you to exempt the screening, and you may have to send a portion of it back just for design approval.
Well, and that was part of why we continued forward and didn't try to get a continuance right away, because we look at this, and it's just our thought, is we looked at it is we can still have the ruling on the variance of screening the cars, yes or no, per the ordinance, and still meet the owner's needs, because we're not doing this. This secondary proposal that we just showed you today is not for screening the cars and not trying, it doesn't have anything to do with the ordinance itself. We came here for the variance. It's really an issue of trying to be a good neighbor to the owners to the north.
Okay. Do you think we're ready for a motion?
I think so. I'll take a stab at it.
Okay.
Motion to approve case number 15493 for the purposes that it meets the statutory requirements for the requested variance, subject to the following conditions. The applicant and the protester will come to an agreement as to what bays shall be covered, as well as a determination of how much to move the parking garage itself away from the current building, existing building, subject up to, 8 feet? Not to require more, or is that, do you want me to kind of get any input?
Yes, we wouldn't be able to move it any more than 8 feet.
Okay, subject
on our preliminary.
up to 8 feet, and then if additional approval is required from urban design, that will also, or Bricktown, will also be sought.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Cast your votes. All right, you're approved.
Thank you.
Thank you all for your time.
We have item number 5, case number 15494, a request of Landmark Palo Verde LLC for a variance to sign regulations that prohibit erection of a sign on or over the street right-of-way located at 17935 North Penn.
My name's Parker Thompson. I'm with Landmark Fine Homes, and my address is 15900 Bison Drive. So we're looking for variance to allow us to put our entry sign within the right-of-way along Pennsylvania Avenue. I have these. This just outlines where our sign location is. And the reason that we believe we have to put the sign in the right-of-way, it's 60 feet along Penn, about 50 north of our entry, it drops back to 50 feet. But just to the west of the right-of-way, there's also an ONG high-pressure line that runs north and south. And they, when running this by all the utility companies, they required 2 feet of cover, so we couldn't move that sign any farther to the west. Yeah, and we have all the letters of no objections from all the utility companies, and we have our revocable permit. And we just think that this is pretty much the only location that is available to us.
Any questions or comments from the board?
Parker, I went by there this morning and saw that the foundation was already poured and looked at the location. There weren't any existing utilities underneath it from the Okie marks that were there, and it looks like that I could be agreeable to the location.
Okay. I don't have anybody signed up on this one. Does anybody want to address the board on this application? Yeah? If there's no other questions, I think we're ready for a motion.
Motion to approve case number 15494 for the purposes that it meets the statutory requirements for the requested variance.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Cast your votes. You're approved.
Thank you.
Item number 6, case number 15495, a request of Mashburn Fairs Homes for a variance to the platted side yard building line located at 16920 Triana Drive.
Hi, I'm Shane Mashburn with Mashburn Fairs Homes. Address is 10,001 South Pennsylvania Avenue, Suite 180. Requesting a variance for the subject address for foundation over the building line.
One of your subs poured the footings wrong?
I'm sorry?
One of the subs poured the footings wrong?
Yes.
Yeah.
He sent me here.
I went by there this morning and saw the house is built, it's
Right.
sold. There's
Yeah.
a fence down that, I guess that's probably the southeast side.
Yeah, and I think it's not closer to the home to the north. They actually have more space, and then to the south, you've got the 12 feet, and then you're 12 feet from the back of the curb, so you've got about 24 feet to the curb from those points.
Yeah, and the fence doesn't block the sight distance, and it's a straight shot, so.
No, it's still within the covenants on the fence, and I think the neighbors are just happy that a home actually finally got built there, so.
And overall, it's about 3 feet, right?
I'm sorry?
It's about 3 feet.
Actually, I'm not gonna argue it. I think it's less because I got out there personally and pulled tape. I think it's more like 18 to 24 inches, but that was the construction survey back when we found out when we were already framed and.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the board? And I don't have anybody signed up on this one. Does anybody want to speak on this application? All right, I think we're ready for a motion.
Motion to approve case number 15495 for the purposes that it meets the statutory requirements for the requested variance.
Second.
Motion and a second, cast your votes.
Thank you.
Okay, you're approved.
Item number 7, case number 15195, an application of Ashlyn Jill Angel and Natalie Suzanne Angel to allow home sharing located at 2048 Northwest 22nd Street.
Hi, my name's Brett Cranford, and I'm representing Ashlyn and Natalie Angel. My address is 2200 Northwest 27th. They own the property at 2048 Northwest 22nd, and they're requesting that they be able to basically use it as a short-term rental property, like at VRBO or Airbnb. And they're aware of all the compliance issues as well as the noise ordinance issue.
Questions from the board?
Was there anyone here to speak on this one?
No, I don't have
No.
anybody signed up, and I didn't have a protest in the packet.
Okay. Just a couple of administrative things from the application. It's a 3-bedroom, and your maximum would be 6 guests.
I'm sorry?
3 beds, 3 bedrooms with a maximum of 6 guests.
Yes.
And then something I would like to see is the quiet hours listed
Yes.
in the application.
Yeah, they sent that to me today, and they were aware of it and said that's fine.
Okay, 7 a.m. to 10 p.m.
Yeah.
10 p.m. to 7 a.m. And then maximum of 3 cars. It's a shared driveway. I think 3 cars could fit in the driveway. And then for this application, a 1-year exemption.
Okay.
Okay, nobody signed up to speak on this one. Does anybody want to address the board on this application? Okay, if there's nothing else, I think we're ready for a motion.
Motion to approve case number 15195 for the purposes that it meets the statutory requirements for the special exceptions with the following modifications. This shall be for a term of 1 year. Maximum number of cars shall be 3, and quiet hours shall be from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second, cast your votes.
Thank
You're
you.
approved.
Item number 8, case number 15485, a renewal application of Tracy Gaspara to allow home sharing located at 3108 Northwest 62nd Street.
Hello, my name is Tracy Gaspara with Gold Tooth One Investments. My address is 5301 East Britton Road. And I'm here for application for renewal for 2 properties for a special exception home sharing. The first property is at 3108 Northwest 62nd. And the second property, is it okay that I do these together, one at a time? Okay. So the first one is 3108 Northwest 62nd Street. This is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. I do have self-imposed rules of quiet hours from 9 p.m. to 9 a.m. And 6 people are the maximum number of people. I do have security cameras outside of the property to monitor the number of guests. And then also I do manage the property myself, and this last year I have had no issues, so.
Anything from the board?
Is there anyone here to speak on this one?
Nobody
Nope.
signed up. Does anybody want to address the board on this application? Okay, I think
Tracy, if I could add a maximum of 4 cars to the application,
Okay.
and then for me, a 3-year exemption for the renewal.
Okay.
okay. I think we're ready for a motion then.
Motion to approve case number 15485 for the purposes that it meets the statutory requirements for a special exception with the following modifications to the application. Maximum number of cars shall be 4, and this will be for a term of 3 years.
Second.
Okay, motion is second, cast your votes.
And I don't know if this is a good time to bring it up, the formality of, there's a typo, it's AU2, it's not a Z. So just formality there on the name of the company. It's weird, I know, sorry.
Okay, you won.
Okay. Do I need to redo my name?
And item number 9, case number 15486, a renewal of Tracy Gaspera to allow home sharing at 3204 Northwest 35th Street.
This property is very similar. I have applied for home sharing, a special exemption, same time last year. With this property, it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. Same self-imposed rules of quiet hours from 9 p.m. to 9 a.m. All the same. I manage the property. Maximum of 6 people. So.
Anyone here to speak on this one?
Nah.
Nope.
Now, anybody here on this application? Nope, okay.
Tracy, the same
Okay.
additions to the application, which would be a maximum of 4 cars and then a 3-year exception.
Okay. I appreciate it.
All right, we're ready for a motion then.
Motion to approve case number 15486 for the purposes that it meets the statutory requirements for special exceptions with the following modifications. Maximum number of cars shall be 4, term of 3 years, and modifying the applicant's name accordingly.
Second.
Thank
Okay,
you.
motion is second, cast your votes. You're approved.
Item number 10, case number 15491, a renewal application of Kathy Kim to allow home sharing at 529 Northwest 137th Street.
Hello, my name is Vuthi Kim, and currently reside at 529 137th Street. I'm Kathy Kim's husband. So. We're requesting our renewal for the home sharing application as well, for 529.
Okay, questions from the board?
Was there anyone here to speak on this one?
No. Anybody want to address the board on this application? Nobody signed up.
Okay, Mr. Kim, just a couple additions to the application, and to put quiet hours from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m., which I saw that you had minimal noise, you kept at a minimum, but just put quiet hours in there.
Okay.
And a maximum of 2 cars.
Yeah, so it's a 2-car garage, and also we have that driveway as well.
2 car, and
Yes.
so you could put 4 cars in there. So you could put 2 in the driveway and 2 in the garage is accessible.
Yes.
And then a 3-year exception. And this is a duplex, right?
Yes, it's a-
Do you own both sides?
No, we only own the half side.
How do you get to 6 people?
It's a 2-bed, 2-bath with the pull-out couch in the living room.
So the pull-out couch itself is at least a full size or a queen?
Yeah. Oh, it's a full. Yeah,
A full?
It's full size. Yes.
How many square feet in the home?
I don't recall.
Okay.
It's listed on there somewhere.
You're here for a renewal, right?
Yes.
And when you came the first time, the house was still the same size, same number of beds, and it was approved with that same
Correct.
number of people?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, nobody signed up to speak on this one. Does anybody want to address the board on this application? Anything else from the board? Okay, I think we're ready for a motion then.
A motion to approve case number 15491 for the purposes that it meets the statutory requirements for special exceptions with the following modifications. Quiet hours shall be from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. Maximum number of cars shall be limited to 4 and for a term of 3 years.
I second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second, so cast your votes. You're approved.
Great, thank you much.
Item number 12, case number 15488. I'm sorry. Item number 11, case number 15487, a renewal application for Lindsay and Dustin Long to allow home at 17524 Zinc Drive.
Hi, my name is Lindsay Long, and I'm at 2200 Summer Hollow Lane, and we're requesting a continuance for our home sharing that we were approved for last year. It's a 3-bed, 2-bath, plus an office area, and we have quiet hours from 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. And we also require guests to park in the driveway, so off of the street.
Okay, anything from the board?
Was there anyone here to speak on this one?
There was one, nobody signed up, but there was one protest in the packet.
Yeah, I'm happy to address that. If you
Go ahead.
So I read the protest. It was a generic protest against rentals in general in the neighborhood. So I would just like to tell the measures, the extra measures that we go to, because we realize that it is their neighborhood and we want to be respectful of that. So the two things that they addressed generically, not about our home sharing, was safety, and then the neighborhood, just community, I guess. Or the value of the homes going down is what they said. So for safety, what we do is the title of our listing is called Kid Friendly in a Quiet Neighborhood. So we're specifically marketing to families, and that is who we are getting. So oftentimes it's people who are visiting extended families who live in the area and they need the extra space. Or currently we have somebody who's a family coming in town for a soccer tournament. So that's one thing that we're doing. We also don't allow last-minute bookings. We don't allow one-night bookings because we don't want parties. We also pay for an extra service where guests have to fill out this form, and a company does like an identity verification for us. So we're doing something beyond what Airbnb and VRBO does for identity verification because we want to really keep the neighborhood safe. As far as the value, we've had neighbors comment about how much nicer the home looks now that we're there. We have a lawn service that comes every week during the summer and even just did the raking. But last night my husband was at the house and said, some of our leaves are in the neighbor's lawn. So this morning I went and I raked the neighbor's lawn. Like, we're really trying to be good neighbors there. And then the last thing is it's also in our best interest to keep the value of the neighborhood up because we want to attract people that are there to visit their family and have a pleasant time and not feel uncomfortable. So we are aware of the general concerns, but we're doing our best to mitigate anything that the neighbors might have. And our immediate neighbors have not voiced any concerns, and we have had conversations with them, so.
Nobody signed up to speak. Does anybody want to address the board on this application?
You have a 3-bedroom home, and you have 7 maximum guests, so.
Yeah, we have a study, and then we have a full-size futon, so usually it's a toddler or something that would sleep on that, maybe a teenager.
The only other thing I would like to see added to it would be a maximum of 4 cars.
Okay, we can do that for sure.
Okay, if there's nothing else, I think we're ready for a motion.
Motion to approve case number 15487 for the purposes that it meets the statutory requirements for special exceptions with the modification that it shall have a maximum number of 4 cars.
Okay, got a motion and a second. Cast your votes, please. You're approved.
Thank you.
Item number 12, case number 15488 is an application from at 3012 Northwest 12th Street.
Hello, I'm Melissa Hawk. I live at 3504 Lytle Lane in Edmond. I don't know if that matters, but I'm here to apply for a special exception on the property 30112 Northwest 12th Street.
All right, anybody, anything from the board?
Anyone here to speak on it?
Nobody signed up, and I didn't have any protests in the packet. Does anybody want to address the board on this application? Okay.
Just a few things. It's a 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath, and you have a maximum of 7 guests.
I have a really large couch in the living room, which I assumed one person could sleep on. So there's a king, a queen, and a bunk bed. So I allowed 7, but I can definitely make that 6 if you would rather.
I'd rather see it 6,
Okay.
just with the one full bath.
Yeah. And I put quiet hours, but I don't have a specified, I figured 2 cars. It's a really long driveway.
Yeah, I think 3 cars could fit in it, so I was gonna ask for 3 cars.
Okay.
Maximum. And then this is the first time this was up, this wasn't a renewal, so a 1-year exemption.
Okay.
Anybody want to address the board on this application? Okay, if there's nothing else, I think we're ready for a motion.
Motion to approve case number 15488 for the purposes that it meets the statutory requirements for special exceptions with the following modifications. Quiet hours are adjusted to be from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. Maximum number of guests shall be 6, and maximum number of cars shall be 3, and for a term of 1 year.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Cast your votes, please.
Thank you, guys.
You're approved.
Item number 13, case number 15492, is an application for special exception of Shelby Ann Kennelly for home sharing located at 2247 Northwest 43rd Street.
Hi, I'm Mike Canali. I'm representing Shelby Canali. My address is 2205 Northwest 45th Street, and looking for a home sharing exception for 2247 Northwest 43rd Street. I have read Mr. Drummond's petition or objection, and his concerns would be the same concerns that we have as well. And we have cameras on the front of the house to verify how many guests are actually coming into the property. And our quiet hours are set for 10 to 8. And we also have a camera that looks over the back of the property as well.
Okay, any questions or comments from the board?
I think there is someone here to speak on this one, so.
Yeah.
Hear from them first.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm John Paul Drummond. I live at 2241 Northwest 43rd, right next door to the property. I actually didn't realize there were so many things that you guys covered in these, as far as quiet hours, safety screening, things like that, that probably, if I had known ahead of time, would have made me rethink the objection to it. However, I'm also here to speak on behalf of Libby Mercer, who lives at 2237 Northwest 43rd, right next to me on the other side. She also echoed some of the same concerns about home sharing, and that the notice failed to explain what the meaning of home sharing was to her. She's objecting to the change in zoning without more information regarding the intended use, along with assurances regarding possible consequences, of course. She also brought up the point that this neighborhood, this particular street, has a lot of foot traffic from homeless populations nearby. One of her concerns is that we don't always know who is supposed to be here and when, and just adding the traffic to the property could cause some security concerns for especially older residents that live nearby. And that was our primary objection to the rezoning or the zoning exception.
Any questions, comments from the board?
I'd like to answer
Go ahead, you can respond.
the homeless situation. This is close to the infamous Northwest Penn and I-44 intersection. And it has now been cleaned up. They have taken care of the, I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to say homeless anymore. It is
Unhoused.
unhoused, thank you. And we have seen a significant change in that. Now, this has just been happening since the last 3 weeks or so, but they have done really significant stuff to move the unhoused into proper housing for them.
Like, just a couple of things I'd like to see added to the application, but first, it's a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath, and you're asking for a maximum of, well, it says 10 to 12 guests.
Mm-hmm.
First, can you tell us how you could get to 10 to 12?
There's in the master bedroom, there's a king-size bed in there. We also have, the house is a 2,400 square foot home. The master is very big, and it also has a day couch that lays out to a bed. But we also have a bunk bed in one of the bedrooms that are 2 queens, and the other bedroom is a queen with a twin bunk bed. And we can limit it down to 10 easily if you'd like.
For me, I'd like to actually see this as first year this is up to go to 7.
7?
Mm-hmm. For me, it's a 3-bedroom home, and I'd allow one ancillary bed, maybe in the living room or something like that. It's in a family neighborhood. There's a protest and concern about the number of people there, and I just think for the first year, prove that you can handle it and manage it. That 7-person maximum would be great for me.
Okay, we do have spaces off-street parking that would handle 6 cars, 2 in the garage and 4 in the driveway. And we are definitely going to, I live right around the corner, so it's my neighborhood too. And if there's any kind of issues or anything like that with too many people being there, then, we're going to get a management company, but if they can't take care of it, I certainly will be available as well. And I would also want to work with Mr. Drummond on any kind of things that we can do to help any kind of situation that does occur. So I would ask for, can we go to 9?
I would like to negotiate and say 8.
This is like, it's our first year.
Yeah, for the first year, especially for the first year. And even though you've described that you do have a large number of beds in the house, you still only have 2.5 bathrooms. So therefore, just to make sure.
There are 2 full bathrooms as well.
2.5
Yes.
bathrooms, yeah. So again, I would say 8 instead of your 10 to 12.
Okay. We can do that.
Did you say you had a pull-out bed in the living room, or are all the beds contained to bedrooms?
In the living room, there is a large couch that has like a lounger on the couch as well, so people can sleep on the couch as well. I mean, it's, yeah.
For me, I'm going to be the most conservative on this. I'm going to be at 6. It's the first year that we've got it. It's 3 bedrooms. the additional bed, I could go to 7 if there was a pull-out couch. But we get a lot of folks coming in here asking us to deny these applications. And we go to bat for you guys and explain that you have an opportunity to operate the house in this way. But I want to make sure we're doing our due diligence and doing right by neighbors, making sure that let's have a first year go through this and make sure that everything works out smooth and not laden neighbors with, a potential situation.
Did you say you have a futon in the master with the king bed?
Yes, I mean, it actually can actually move into the living room too, if we needed to do that. And it's basically a couch that you can tip it over and make it into a bed. Not tip it over, but tip the back over. And she has 4 sections of that, so it's almost another 2 beds, and we wouldn't mind. I mean, if we can keep it at 8, we'll definitely move. We can move those out into the living room if that helps, or even get a pull out and get rid of the sofa that she has in there.
I can get on board with 7, kind of meet in the middle of what we've got here. As far as cars, if we've got 7 people, maximum number of 4 cars is probably going to be sufficient. What we're trying to keep in mind is we don't want, and we've had this situation come before us where if you allow too many guests, that's going to invite parties, and that's what we're trying to prohibit.
Well, and that is why we have the cameras, so that we can limit that to the guests that are supposed to be there at the house. And 8 versus 7, I would plead for 8 at least. And I mean, I've watched the board. I've watched your all's meetings and stuff, and same size house, people have come in with several, 12, and they have beds everywhere. At least we were trying to keep them in bedrooms, but I would plead for 8 at least, please.
I would like to add too, I think 7 would be more reasonable with a max of 4 cars. I would also want that you guys provide us with a way to contact the management company if you're not going to manage it yourselves. That way, if we need to contact somebody.
That'd be online. The management company would be online.
Okay. As long as, I mean, I'd be willing for those terms.
And Mike, we would encourage you to be in contact with your neighbors also, just
Absolutely.
so they have your direct contact.
The neighbor just on the west of us, they're the cleaning people for our house, and not that house, but the management company will be taking care of that. So I mean, introduced myself to Mr. Drummond the day I very first saw him, and would certainly keep in touch with the neighbors, and would encourage you to let them know that I do live around the corner.
Mr. Canali, in order not to keep you any longer, I can compromise and approve of 7 as well, because I'm almost certain you will be back next year. So therefore, I can go with 7, just so that we can move this process along.
Okay.
Yes. You're so
Ready?
good at doing that, come on.
All right, just making sure we're ready. A motion to approve case number 15492 for the purposes that it meets the statutory requirements for special exceptions with the following requirements. Maximum number of guests shall be 7, maximum number of cars shall be 4. This shall be for a term of 1 year. And as requested, please provide the contact information to your neighbors so they can get a hold of you, or the management company.
I'll second.
Okay. Got a motion and a second. Cast your votes. All right, you're approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
End of our items requiring
Okay, I don't have any additional items. We don't have any board committees. Anybody on the board want to communicate and report? Ready? Okay. Citizens to be heard. Got one in the back. All right. No one to be heard. I don't have any other business. Oh,
Quick question.
go ahead. Citizens to be heard. Go ahead.
Is this our permit as well, or do we
No.
still need to do the permit part? Okay, but this will show that we're passed to be able to get it.
You're approved here, yes. Okay. I think we're adjourned. Thank you. Cool.